Hi, this is David. This is a little bit of a special episode, so no real intros, no real outros, just trying to help you learn how to make spaghetti and meatballs. Since I've been in Taiwan more than 20 years, there's been a lot of people that just don't know how to cook. Some of them friends, some of them family, but a long time ago, I learned how to make pretty quick spaghetti and meatballs, and I thought I would show you so that maybe you'll be able to make this for yourself. We're gonna start off with an onion. Now for this, we're gonna need about 1/2 of an onion, so be careful when you cut the onion, but cut it from the front to the back. The root part to the front part, put it down, pull off all of the dry skin. Now, when you're cutting up an onion, you're gonna want to leave the root side by itself, and you're gonna wanna start on the other end. Now, if you want the onion diced, you wanna cut the onion this way, but not all the way to the end. The more you cut this way, the smaller the dice is going to be. Then, again, as small or as large as you want the dice to be, cut it off this way. This goes into a pan. The reason you want to start cooking the onions first is because they take a long time to cook. Now this is an induction cooker, it's super high power, so we're gonna put it on 2, I hope. Then we're gonna want a little bit of salt on the onions. Just a little bit of oil to help them get started. I usually use butter, but today we're using oil. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make meatballs. Now, usually I would use beef or pork, but today we're using chicken. The type of meat that you're using doesn't matter at all. What does matter is how much salt you put into the meat. Now this is 860 grams of meat. So we need about 1.5% salt for the amount of meat. So we're gonna need about, figure 8 or 9 grams of salt. So that's 9 grams of salt, so that should be more than enough. Adding the salt to meat does a thing called protein extraction. What it does is it makes it a little bit more like a batter or a dough rather than just ground meat. After you add the salt, any other thing that you want to add just adds to the flavor. Chicken doesn't have a lot of flavor by itself, but we'll add other things to make it more flavorful. This is a basic Italian seasoning I bought at the store. I normally would put 2 tablespoons of this when I make meatballs. Also gonna wanna add some pepper. Now once you've got this part done, then you have to mix it up. And you really want to smash it. Just smash it, smash it, smash it. Now this is a little bit cold, so my fingers are about to die, but it's okay. At least it's not beef. Once you start getting protein extraction, the meat becomes very, very sticky. You'll be able to put a clump of it in your hand and just hold your hand upside down and it'll stick to your hand. Once the meat has gotten to this point, it's changed from ground meat to sausage. Then what we want to do, take a small amount, make it into a little ball, drop it in with the onions, turn this down to 1 because it's too powerful. We're gonna do that as quickly as possible. And let me wash my hands again. Now you can see the meat here is starting to turn white on the bottom, and the onions are starting to fry nice. So this will be fine. You need to leave it for a few more minutes, and then we'll turn the meatballs over. While that's doing that, we'll start preparing some of the other things that go into the spaghetti. namely tomatoes and mushrooms. For the tomatoes, I usually just cut them either into 4 or into 8. But you can cut them up as much or really as little as you want. And you can see that the color change is moving up the and those will continue cooking. But since they're already cooking, we can go ahead and add the tomatoes and they'll start to lose water and start to boil the meatballs a little bit. We move on to mushrooms. Now these mushrooms are already pretty small, maybe 1.5, maybe twice, maybe into 4ths, whichever one you prefer. Finally. Now generally when you're doing spaghetti in water, you're gonna wanna salt the water until it tastes like the sea. That can be whatever you're pretty comfortable with. Once this goes in, we need an 8-minute timer, and hopefully everything will be done when the noodles themselves are done. I'm sorry, camera, I'm not looking at you. I like my fingers, but hate to lose them. You may need to turn the meatballs a couple of different times to get all of the sides to be cooked. Garlic is a pretty special ingredient for a lot of things. A lot of people think that you should put in garlic last, so that's what we're going to do today. Garlic will be the last thing that we put in with our last bit of spaghetti sauce. A lot of times you see people smash it with a knife. You can do that. I always feel a little weird smashing the knife with my hand, but cut it up into nice small little pieces. See that a lot of these tomatoes and the onions are really starting to kind of fall apart. The smell is nice. Now the meatballs aren't all the way finished at this point, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the tomato sauce or the spaghetti sauce, and then we're gonna try to finish cooking them in the sauce. So we'll add the sauce here, add the mushrooms, add the garlic. We'll start trying to mix this up a little bit. But it is also time to check a meatball. So the best way to do that is just to pull a meatball out, put it on a cutting board, cut it in half, and hope that it's done all the way through. So the meatball here is done all the way through. It's white, it's chicken meat, so it's not going to turn brown or anything. If you go to a restaurant, spaghetti, it's going to be served with the spaghetti and then the sauce on top of the spaghetti. I generally just like to mix them together, so that's what I'm going to do today. I'll pull it out of here and just move it over into our pot over there. A little extra water will just make the sauce a little bit looser. If you want it to be more thick, you can just cook it a little bit longer. Ugh. And that's it, spaghetti and meatballs. In about 15 minutes. See you next time. Bye.